They are the school children, teenagers and parents who never returned home from the Manchester Arena. This was suicide bomber Salman Abedi in the minutes before he detonated his homemade device at 10:31 p.m. But to what extent were the 22 victims and the hundreds injured let down by the staff tasked with keeping them secure? Today, after hearing months of harrowing evidence, the families of those who died heard that security failings meant more lives could have been saved.
I have concluded that there were serious shortcomings in the security provided by those organisations which had responsibility for it, and also failings and mistakes by some individuals.
For the parents of 29-year-old victim Martyn Hett, today's findings from the inquiry have brought new pain.
Today, our heartbreak turns to anger. We entrusted the safety of our loved ones into organisations and agencies who had a duty of care to protect them. This inquiry has rightly found that we were failed on every level.
Now, after this report, we are one step closer to ensuring that a difference can be made. Now the recommendations have to be acted upon by the government so that all venues have basic security and so that no other families have to go through what we have.
The inquiry levels criticism at the British Transport Police. Against instructions, there were no police officers in the foyer when the concert ended. Sir John Saunders criticises officers for going on a 5-mile journey for a kebab. 4 were instead standing together in Victoria train station next door. There was a lack of leadership on the ground, it concludes. The contracted Showsec security stewards were guilty of what the inquiry chairman said was the most striking missed opportunity. As Abedi acted suspiciously, he says the teenage stewards did not react as robustly and effectively as they should have when a worried parent had raised concerns. Finally, errors by the arena owners SMG were highlighted. Abedi was able to exploit their CCTV system and identify blind spots out of the camera's view, where he was able to hide for an hour before blowing himself up. Sean Gardner and his daughter survived the blast but were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. He says it was clear on the night that bureaucracy hampered the response.
You know, the services around us were just, I think, tied up in process and training, and it has to be done this way. You know, it's not quite computer says, but it feels it, doesn't it? And I think it just lacks the human reaction. That's the problem. You know, that spontaneity just wasn't there. It was panic, but there wasn't a spontaneity in terms of people wanting to do, you know, to do the right thing, maybe.
This evening, the 3 parties involved have issued responses. British Transport Police says it's reviewed its procedures since 2017. Showsec says it's learnt lessons. And SMG stresses it's installed a new CCTV system since the attack. More findings and more lessons will follow in the coming months. But today, for the 22 victims, the report had 5 words. More should have been done. Julian Drucker, 5 News, Manchester.
Well, Catherine Jacob is in Manchester for us too. Catherine, today's report is just one part of the inquiry. What else is still to come?
That's right, Peter, and it's important to say that the inquiry continues. This is just the first report. The second will look at the actions of the emergency services on the night, and the third will look into the actions of the national security services. But the inquiry chair, Sir John Saunders, said it was very important to him that today's report was published as soon as possible, not at the end of the inquiry, because the changes to security at the arena need to be made as soon as possible. Now, there is a government consultation going on, a public consultation, after the mother of one of the victims, Martyn Hett, campaigned for a new law, so-called Martyn's Law. Protect Duty will ensure that the owners and operators of big venues and places where public performances take place, like the Manchester Arena, will have to ensure that new safety measures are put in place to protect the public in the face of potential terror attacks. And the families of the victims today very much welcomed the inquiry's findings and were full of praise for the inquiry's chair.
We're more than pleased with everything that he's produced, especially as that's only the first stage. And what has particularly impressed us is the fact that he's going to monitor them to make sure that they're put into place. It's easy to write a report, but making it follow through is another matter.
Well, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, said today, we will carefully consider the conclusions and recommendations in this report. I am extremely grateful to Figan Murray and her tireless campaigning for Martyn's Law. Well, the families now say that as well as answers, they just want guarantees that the same fatal errors won't be made again.